The rats are absolutely going to hate this announcement. But the rats don't run the city, we do.
Today, let's talk about invasive species. This is a very complicated topic, and it's something that I deal with in my work as of right now. I work in conservation, and the main thing that I do is during 9 months out of the year, I'm removing invasive plant species from the Pacific Northwest, and then the other 3 months, which just started right now, is planting native species. A lot of people see the term invasive species and think, well, if they're not going to do well with these invasive species, they probably don't deserve to survive. There's no reason to put the effort in. I want to make the case about why invasive species are so damaging, and I want to compare it to a sports game. Let's say pick your favorite sport out there. I'm going to say baseball because baseball is one of my favorites. Say that you're in a league with a bunch of other teams and things are pretty even in the amount of skill between teams. So on any given day, pretty much any team can win, and there's kind of an ebb and flow between which team is at the top at that any given time. Then let's say all of a sudden a new team comes into the league, but without knowing it, they're playing by different rules. Their bat is stronger, their bases, they bring them in closer, and they play with a ball that is different than what you're used to. That's going to be pretty unfair, and it gives them a ridiculous advantage, but those are the rules that they've always played with. So when they come to this new environment, they're going to have a ridiculous advantage. But think about it, if I told you ahead of time that we're going to be playing with different rules and you had time to practice, it wouldn't be as much of a shock, and you'd more likely be able to compete with these different rule sets. That's kind of how invasive species are, is these native species have grown up and evolved together over tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of years, but they've always been together. Then you get a new species that's been introduced that grows in a different way or grows faster or more aggressively, and it's able to take over because they're playing by different rules. Himalayan blackberry is a species that is the most damaging, in my opinion, to the sites that I work on commonly. We have native blackberry species in the United States and the Pacific Northwest, but they grow in a very different way. The native blackberry species here grow along the ground and allows other understory species to take off and do well during that time. These Himalayan blackberries will grow to the size of like a 1 or 2 story building, and they are able to shade out pretty much everything else from the understory, and it makes it a monoculture, meaning that they're the only species that's around because nothing else can compete with it because they are playing by different rules. But I wanted to talk about a good story. I saw this article pop up on my Twitter feed, and whenever I see a positive news about conservation, I want to talk about it because there's a lot of doom and gloom in this space. So anytime something positive happens, I want to discuss it. We're going to be talking about Hawaii, and we're going to be talking about the black rat, which is Rattus rattus, which I just wanted to say because it's one of my favorite scientific names out there, just because it's so stupid. So these rats were brought to Hawaii with the European settlers at the end of the 1700s, and since that point they've been able to do extremely well on the Hawaiian Islands because they are playing a different game compared to what the native species of the Hawaiian Islands have been playing for all of these years. And as a result, they've done a lot of damage to bird species. They eat the young, they steal the eggs, and they damage the habitat by eating a lot of the native plant species, and it's really damaged the incredible biodiversity of plant and bird species off of the islands. So this is compared to, I'll probably make a video about it in the next couple weeks, in Guam, where the green tree snake, or maybe it was the brown tree snake, I kind of forgot already, was accidentally introduced to Guam in the 1940s by the US government. And because there were no native snake species on those islands, a lot of those bird species made their nests on the ground, and they were able to be eaten very easily by the snakes because they're just not used to them. So as a result, a lot of the bird species on Guam are extinct to this day. So you have the efforts of trying to save these bird species because of the incredible biodiversity that you've seen on there. On this one island that we're going to talk about today, which is Lehua, which is just, I think, a half mile or 5 miles west of Kauai. It's 285 acres, and it is uninhabited, so it makes it a perfect area to try to put all this effort into get rid of an invasive species and protect all of these birds. It is critical for shorebirds because 17 different bird species use it for nesting or year-round habitat, and the biodiversity of plants is worth keeping as well. So efforts began in 2009 to try to remove the rat from the island. Because of its size, it was determined to be feasible. Islands are great in the fact that they are isolated. When you talk about evolution, it's a lot easier to study evolution on an area that's isolated. That's why mountains are such a good barrier to study things, because when you have these tall peaks, just animals aren't going to be able to crawl over the top of it and go to these new areas easily. So it allows these populations to be much more isolated. And in this instance, you're able to try to remove all of the rats from the island because likely they're not going to be able to be reintroduced if things go according to plan. So the first effort started in 2009, and it was kind of had some limited success. There was overlap with a dead whale calf that washed up on the shores that the general public was worried was caused by the rodenticide, or the rat poison that was going to be put onto the island. There was a bunch of research that was done into it, and the practice of trying to get rid of the rats was halted. They found that the rodenticide was not the cause of it, but it took a while to get the trust of the public back. So after a couple years, the program restarted back in 2017, and it was incredibly effective. After 3 years, the number of rats seen on the island was down to 5, and at that point they started bringing in teams with trained dogs to find rats to try to make sure that they were, with certainty that they had removed all of the rats from the island, and that was finally announced in 2021 that they are able to get rid of all of the rats on the island. So this is a great example of how with specific effort and important areas you're able to go through and remove invasive species. I've talked about on my other channels that it's not realistic to remove all invasive species. There's just too much land and we don't have enough manpower or effort to make that happen. So we need to pick specific habitats, whether it be areas of high biodiversity or areas that are more protected from human impact, and put your efforts into it. So you have this island off of Hawaii that is uninhabited, and that's great because the way a lot of these invasive species move is by transport by human means. They can be on planes and shipments, and it's very easy for them to spread to these islands. So the hope is that since they've eradicated the rats from this island, they're not going to be able to repopulate the island for a while. I'm sure there's going to be monitoring programs to make sure this is the case, but this is one step to removing invasive species off an important island. We're not free of invasive species on Hawaii. They still have Rattus rattus, the black rat, on most of the Hawaiian islands. And the problem with feral cats is extremely prevalent, and I'll probably make a video talking about that in the future. But here on this article, you can see the picture. It is a feral cat eating a endangered bird off of the island, off of Oahu, the Hawaiian coot in its mouth. So we've gotten to this positive story about conservation and removing invasive species, and I hope it can be some motivation that it's not all doom and gloom. We can try to protect some of these important habitats. And it was a story that I hadn't heard talked about, and I wanted to discuss it on this channel. So my name is Andy. Hopefully you learned something from this video, and if there's a topic you'd like me to discuss in a future video so that other people can learn about it, be sure to let me know down below. And if you made it this far, please hit that like and subscribe button, as would help my channel out a lot, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.